Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. We're live. It's Wednesday, second show of the week, second of three. We'll be back again on Friday, a little bit earlier than 3:30 Eastern, but we're giving you all we can until the trade deadline. And here, joining me to talk us through what's changed over the last 48 hours, Fansided's MLB Insider, Robert Murray. Robert, how are you doing?
I'm good. I was having some technical difficulties on my end, but we finally got them figured out. I'm live from San Diego. Life is good. We're here. We got a loaded notebook for today's show. It should be pretty crazy. We got news about Alex Cora and the Boston Red Sox, so we'll be diving into that here in a little bit, I'm sure. Adam Weinrib, how are you?
I'm good. I wish we didn't have to dive into news about Alex Cora, but we certainly do. We've got so much. I'll let you empty the notebook. Obviously, I'll direct this show with a couple of prompts and, again, mostly just detailing progress, surprising entrance into the trade deadline field since we last spoke on Monday. And, of course, getting to your questions, have a few questions from our Discord All-Stars queued up, as well as keeping my eyes on the chat. Shout out to our Discorders. As always, if you want to be able to talk to Robert and I between shows, and this particular week, that would mean Tuesday and Thursday, because we've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows. Join us in our Discord. All-star level gets you priority access in the chat, as well as a private stream with us once per month. And the rumor mill tier allows you to just ask Robert and I questions, hang out in the Discord, and join a very fun community. So if that interests you, we hope you hit the join button under this video. Additionally, show sponsored by DraftKings. Whoa, what's up with that? I said Discord before DraftKings? Yeah, sue me, DraftKings. They probably will, actually. Don't do that. They're offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for new users, though, and it never gets less fantastic. Those new customers can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim $150 in bonus bets when you sign up with our code BaseballInsider. The best part is you will receive your rewards even if your first bet loses. Using our code BaseballInsider not only gets you these bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. You've been considering signing up for DraftKings. No better time to use the code BaseballInsider to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And while we're going to have plenty of big names in free agency this offseason, it does not appear as if Alex Cora is one of them. Seemed like maybe a foregone conclusion. The only thing that could halt the Red Sox momentum with so much young talent still on the way was Cora angling for a front office role and chasing the money elsewhere. Instead, it seems he will stay in Boston, 3-year extension, $7.5 million a year. No more lame duck manager. Not a 10-year deal, but 3 years is better than one. And that's the second highest AAV in the sport for a manager behind Counsell. That ain't working so far. But no. Alex Cora always does more with less. And honestly, continuity here, extremely important. And you're not going to do better than Alex Cora.
No, you're not. And I thought entering this year, I thought it was a virtual certainty that he was going to be leaving Boston because there was absolutely no buzz whatsoever that he was anywhere close to a deal with the Boston or even talking about a new deal with Boston. And now here we are, middle of the season, right after the All-Star break, and they agreed to terms on a new 3-year deal. It's a really smart move for Boston. He's one of the best managers in baseball. He's maximized that roster more than I think anybody in baseball really can. And it ensures that he stays there. It also is going to be a really good thing for that clubhouse too, to have that continuity, I should say. And that's only going to mean good things for them. And it's also, should they be in the market to upgrade the roster in free agency, which, I mean, with the Boston Red Sox, how they currently are now, you never really know. That's going to end up being a pretty enticing thing for impending free agents because you're going to have the manager in place. He's a player-friendly manager. It's only a good thing for Boston. I'm shocked that it got done, let alone now. But that's, props to Boston for stepping up, paying him, and now making him the second highest paid manager in baseball. And hopefully it's a sign of things that come for their spending as well.
Yeah, potentially a pretty significant signal that they plan to make additions this offseason in accordance with Cora and probably do the buying that we've been yelling that they should do at the deadline on this podcast. Let's get right into it. Good for the Sox. Nothing but a positive up arrow there. Couple questions already about one particular fit that we were going to speak about anyway, so we might as well start. In terms of the most intriguing deadline fits that have emerged this week, one sort of feels like a fantasy becoming reality. It's been a long time coming for Dodgers and Randy Arozarena rumors, but now Mark Feinsand claims the Dodgers are officially in. So that is a fit that we can start to speculate about. We envisioned it this spring, and now here we are. What types of conversations do you think the Dodgers and Rays are currently having after already getting together on a Tyler Glasnow deal just a few months ago?
Yeah, I think that's the first thing that is really smart for you to mention is that the fact that they have a history of making deals. They're very familiar with one another. Obviously, Andrew Friedman came over from Tampa Bay. Him and Eric Neander have a good relationship. So there's definitely groundwork for these two teams to end up possibly hashing out a deal. But that being said, the Dodgers are casting a wide net, and they're also looking specifically at the high end or top end of the market. That involves Garrett Crochet, that involves Luis Robert Jr., that involves Randy Arozarena, it involves Mason Miller. Like, they've called on all of those guys. So it's not necessarily out of like the ordinary here that they're calling. That's part of why these it's part of what happens here at the deadline is teams call on every single one of these players to try to figure out who's available, what it takes to get certain players. So I wouldn't necessarily read too much into the fact that they're in on him and that they're having conversations, because that's just what these teams do. But the fit makes a lot of sense. I think he wouldn't end up expanding their payroll too much by any means if they do acquire him. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I think that might be enticing for the Dodgers because they clearly are all in on this season. And also beyond as well. But this season specifically, I think, is a really important one, especially with Clayton Kershaw coming back. So I think it makes a lot of sense as a fit, but I don't necessarily know how likely it is, at least as of this point.
It's a great fit, though, for a team that does need more. Yeah. I mean, we again, all offseason long, we had to deal with people being like, it's unfair. It's a super team. And now it's like they need several outfielders and a lot of pitchers. So Randy feels like a better fit even now than he might have felt like in the spring. Talking about contenders and contenders who might be willing to get creative. What of this Orioles willing to trade Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins report that came out last night? Now, is this one of these listening on situations where every team is willing to listen if you have a proposal that makes sense? Or is this something that could really shake up the deadline from a hybrid perspective from Baltimore? And have you perceived a change in Baltimore's strategy after Jorge Mateo went down last night? They're probably going to have to go to the farm now.
Yeah, I think as far as the Orioles go, they're in a position where they can listen on both of these guys. I don't think it's anything more than listening. I don't think they're shopping them. I think they're just listening, and they're open to it because they have so much depth in the minors where they can trade from these positions and then try to upgrade certain other areas of their roster. And that's specifically probably going to be pitching. I'm not saying they're going to trade these guys straight up for a major league pitcher by any means, but they could end up getting pieces back in return for these guys and then trying to flip them to acquire a starting pitcher, because the prices for some of these guys, whether it's Garrett Crochet or even a Mason Miller type who would upgrade their late innings like in a huge way, the prices for them are huge. I had somebody tell me this morning that the price for Mason Miller is egregious and that they did not view the A's is likely to trade him at all. That's probably very, very unlikely at this point. So I would not expect a Mason Miller trade. But as far as this for the Orioles, it's just listening. We'll see if it happens. I wouldn't rule it out. But this is just what their overall talent depth allows them to do. It allows them to think creatively and potentially operate creatively as long as the offers are right.
Mason Miller for Mountcastle and Mullins is what I'm hearing from you, and I'm going to run with that. And
tweet that right now. Hopefully MLB Deadline News does not aggregate you.
Yeah, MLB Deadline News, where are you at? I don't know. I hear you on that. And, as much as a Mason Miller trade could certainly be appealing whenever you have the chance to cash in at the peak of a reliever, you always have to tempt yourself, pinch yourself a little bit, think about whether you're willing to sacrifice some goodwill with the fan base. But the price should be astronomical, and other teams should be reticent to pay that. Got some Angels questions.
Oh, yeah.
Per usual. So in accordance with plenty of Angels questions, Joshua Harris asks, outside of the usual names, Anderson, Rengifo, Ward, Estevez, who could the Angels move? For the first time this week, I saw Reed Detmers floated as I mean, look, that's the biased low of all the buy lows. The AAA numbers are not there either, and this is someone who we thought was the Angels' ace. So in addition to that group of people that we know the Angels are probably comfortably selling, is Detmers a guy who they're just fielding calls on, or are they actively putting him into packages for Rengifo Estevez, upping the value there?
Yeah, I think this is just a case of the Angels listening, because he's such a buy low candidate, and there's people in baseball who think he's got really, really, really good stuff, and he does. He's just struggled this year, but there's been flashes, and if the Angels do trade him now and sell for pennies on the dollar, I put this in my notes. It feels like a classic case of, if they do trade him, it's going to turn into an LOL Angels kind of situation where they're going to look really dumb for it. And if I was the Angels, I would not trade him. If the offer is too good to be true, or you get value that you deem like that you can't turn down, then maybe you end up pulling the trigger on a deal. But I would not be in a hurry to move him at all. He's controllable. He's young. He's super talented. You don't trade those kind of players when they're struggling. That just seems like it's not the same as the Jordan Walker talk with the Cardinals, but or at least the rumors going on. I'm not saying that stuff I'm hearing. I'm just seeing that stuff that's been on Twitter or X or whatever we call it these days. But yeah, I would not trade him if I was the Angels. That being said, I think their bullpen guys like Estevez, Matt Moore, Luis Garcia, I think those guys all make a lot of sense as potential trade candidates. I think one team that could make sense there is the Kansas City Royals. So we'll see. The Angels got a lot of different possibilities, but they should really not include Reed Detmers in any of those. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Before tossing to questions, I know you have a lot in the notebook, and we have a ton of questions. But first of all, I'll just open the floor to anything in your notebook that you want to address before we move on. I think upset of the century that we finally get a significant move a week before the deadline. July 24th, July 30th is the deadline, and the first salvo is the Red Sox extending a manager. So we're still here waiting on a trade more significant than Hunter Harvey. But anything that you are eyeing, we've now got 6+ days to go, basically, until the hammer drops.
Yeah, slowly but surely, these talks around baseball have started to pick up. That's not saying that anything is imminent, but talks are starting to pick up here. I still think we're going to see we could see a decent amount of movement, but it's not going to end up being any of these big names, I don't think, unless it's Crochet or Luis Robert, or players along those lines that have been mentioned in rumors. But I don't think we're going to be in for any surprises. I'd be really surprised if Skubal goes. But that being said, I think there's one team that's been mentioned in rumors who there's been different talks about certain things, and it's the Toronto Blue Jays. They still to this day are telling teams that they want to compete in 2025. I had that legitimately mention that again to me today. So I would not imagine that Vlad Jr. or Bo Bichette or any of those players go. The one player that they have been listening on has been Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. So I'm curious if they are going to end up getting an offer that is suitable, because he's been good for them this year. He's a useful piece. He's also signed for next year. But there were so many teams that were willing to give him a 2-year deal in free agency that makes me wonder if they can end up getting an offer that allows them to move on from him and maybe upgrade a different part of the roster, or that allows them to compete for next year, or in next year, I should say. So I think maybe he's one name to watch. It sounds like the Brewers are also open to potentially moving one of their relievers. I'm not saying it's going to be a big name by any means, but like one of their lower end relievers, because they have Devin Williams coming back. They got certain players coming off of the injured list that they need to clear room for. And they also got to make room for Jacob Mizorowski, who is most likely going to debut at some point in the second half of the year, and he'll be in the bullpen most likely. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers did that. Let's see, what else do I got here? Still think the Pirates end up getting a bat or two. Padres remain very aggressive on the market. They are looking at starting pitching, relieving, and I was going to say starting pitching, relieving, and hitting, which is literally everything. So AJ Preller is absolutely on the phone. Paredes, he is getting interest. One team that I've heard is the Astros. I think that got reported today by The Athletic. I'm not sure, but that is something that I've absolutely heard. So we'll see. But that's at least what I've got right now.
Yeah, why wouldn't the Astros have an interest in a controllable 25-year-old power bat who could play first now and move over to third if Alex Bregman leaves?
Yeah, I wouldn't like if the Astros did acquire him, I could see him absolutely playing first base for sure. I think he could.
It would make all the sense in the world. I've definitely got my eyes on that as well. That prompt about surprising moves that haven't been mentioned much came from our Discord from J-Rod MVP season. Again, Discord questions. In the All-Star channel, first priority. Join the Rumor Mill tier if you want to hang out with Robert and I between shows. Ask us questions. We're happy to answer them on that platform, but obviously we'll take them to the show too. Drop in the comment section. Let us know. This combining two Discord questions into one, too, before we move on to the chat. And I see the chat going off over this anyway, but Canyon asked about something that we had floated a couple weeks ago about the Pirates maybe entertaining trading Aroldis Chapman, offloading some of that salary and sort of hybriding as they move towards the wild card picture. Baron Dionis asked as a separate supplementary question, if Brian Reynolds hits the IL, would that change the Pirates' approach at all? I mean, we already know they need outfield bats. They would be losing a significant internal outfield bat in that scenario. The need would only increase. So Chapman trade strategy, maybe it shifts if they have to put Reynolds on the IL. What are you hearing in Pittsburgh, specifically, I would say, regarding Chapman?
Yeah, as far as Aroldis Chapman goes, I think the Pirates are open to it, but they're not going to be in a hurry to trade him. I don't necessarily have a feel for how much payroll flexibility they have at the deadline here. I think that's kind of a question mark, especially with Bob Nutting as the owner. So if they don't have a lot of payroll flexibility, then I think trading Chapman becomes a more plausible scenario where they can end up where they can include Chapman in a deal, ship out his salary or the remainder of his salary, I should say, and then use the money saved to upgrade a different part of the roster, aka the offense. If I was the Pirates and if I was Bob Nutting, I would recognize the opportunity at hand here where you're becoming a destination where free agents are going to want to come to Pittsburgh. You have a roster that is emerging. It's a really cool city. It's an awesome ballpark. There's a lot of good things going on in Pittsburgh right now. And you don't want to send the wrong message by trading a player, especially with that team. Like, they're in playoff contention for sure. So the one time that you're in playoff contention in the last however many years, possibly trading a veteran, like, I don't know if that's something I would do. I don't think that's necessarily worth saving potentially around $5 million or whatever that is for his contract at this point. If I was the Pirates, I'd keep Chapman and I would upgrade the offense by adding one or two bats. We'll see what they do, but I don't think trading Chapman is off the table. I just don't necessarily think it's the most likely at this point, but all it can take is one phone call to change things.
I might call him up, see if I can change things personally.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you're getting, especially come postseason time. So I think that's got to be in the back of teams' minds as well. So
yeah,
I don't know. Well, would you want him on the Yankees again, Adam?
Absolutely not. No interest whatsoever. I did just dig deep through the comments because I saw a Yankees specific way back here, and I know that you have some insight on this player as well. I think Rikia Channel asked, the Yankees, besides lacking leadoff hitters, their cleanup spot is ranked last in baseball with a 556 OPS. It's true. Man, they're bad. Do you think they can go after Brent Rooker? I editorialized there a little bit. I said they're bad. The commenter did not, but they are mostly not very good. Luis Severino said they have two good hitters, and I think that's accurate. But any thoughts on the Yankees' plans as well as Rooker as a target? Because I know you have some thoughts there.
Yeah, as far as Rooker goes, I'd be pretty surprised if he's ultimately moved. I think it's kind of trending toward unlikely that he goes. I could be wrong, but I think he'll stay. And one of the big reasons why I think that is because the A's are going to need foundational pieces when they eventually move to Sacramento and then like whenever or wherever they're going to go after Sacramento. I mean, we don't really know at this point, but you have Rooker, who is a very good offensive threat. And then you have Mason Miller, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball or young pitchers in baseball. Those are two marketable guys, and I think that's got to be in the back of their mind. Plus, they're controllable, they're young, they're cheap. Those are all things that the A's really value, want, and need. And I think they would have to get absolutely blown away with an offer to trade Brent Rooker. I don't know if they're necessarily going to get that. So my guess is he stays, but that again, I'm going to mention it, that this class of trade pieces that's out there is so weak that it could get a contending team kind of desperate to overpay. So maybe that ends up happening, but I'm guessing right now that it's trending toward like him staying in Oakland through the deadline here.
And when it comes to the Yankees, there are comments a lot of how long until Jazz Chisholm is a Pirate. Hey, is Jazz a Pirate yet?
Yeah.
The Yankees and Jazz were connected at some point, but a report emerged earlier today that they have concerns about his fit in that clubhouse. Again, I would contend that I have concerns about their current clubhouse and also some previous years' clubhouse fits. So interesting that they'd get Precious now. But that would seem to indicate that they might not be all in on that trade target in general, regardless of personality fit. I don't know. Any thoughts on Jazz, whether it's to the Yankees and there's a culture clash or otherwise? Just the latest on Jazz.
The rumors about those concerns those are real. That's something I've heard for quite a while. That being said, I will say this year I've heard that he's been a good teammate. I've heard good things about him there. But yeah, like the rumors, those are not new. Those have been around for a little while. But there's teams that are still plenty intrigued by him. I think the Seattle Mariners make a lot of sense for him. The Yankees do, especially in the infield. Pirates do make sense, but I think those concerns are something to keep in the back of your mind because it is not a guarantee that he's moved. Well, okay, let me rephrase this. It's not a guarantee that he's moved, but it's definitely trending toward the likely side that he is moved. But it's not a guarantee, but I think it's pretty likely at this point.
Moving to our favorite seller and potential buyers. Some White Sox questions earlier in the chat. Some people floating out, hey, what's the temperature on Crochet right now? And Mark Meyer had a good comment because we all sort of know, all right, Crochet and Fetty and Robert Jr. and Kopech and Brebbia, like there's a lot of availability back here. And the Dodgers have been connected to, we were discussing, hey, maybe a massive package, but at the very least, Robert, Crochet. Individually, we know the Orioles have been a Crochet team. Mark Meyer commented, why would the Chi Sox entertain the Dodgers' much weaker farm led by rushing pitching prospects? Left out DePaula here, but over pushing for the Orioles much better and better fitting ones. The next comment from Matty Rice, because the O's don't want to give up the prospects, is probably the answer there. But Dodgers, Orioles, White Sox, this weird trade deadline Bermuda Triangle. What's the latest on that grouping?
Yeah, this is the team to absolutely watch here at the deadline, and they're placing a high price on all of these guys, but especially Garrett Crochet. Crochet controllable for 2.5 years, including the rest of this year, and you have questions about exactly how like he'll end up getting the rest of his innings this year, whether it's going to be in the rotation or the bullpen. Like that's a very real thing that's on these teams' minds right now. But I still think he'll be traded. But in order for him to get moved, I think the White Sox are going to have to come down on their price a little bit because teams are still. It's a pretty hefty price, and obviously, like the White Sox, I think ultimately will trade him, but it's going to take a huge haul to get him. I will, like everything I've heard is that, like I had one evaluator text me after a start recently that he was the best pitcher he's seen all year, and the only one that was really like comparable was Skubal, and that he said if it was up to him, which it wasn't, but if it was, he would trade 5 prospects for him right now because he can end up being a frontline starting pitcher for any team's rotation. And I've heard that from evaluators, I've heard it from players, I've heard it from agents who represent players who have faced him. Like, it's pretty, like the buzz around him is real. I think some team is going to be willing to pony up and give the White Sox a big price. I also think that could happen with Luis Robert. I think it could happen with Eric Fetty and a lot of these different guys. Like Tommy Pham feels like a lock to go. Just a matter of when, not if he's moved. They have so many trade pieces, and at this point, they could really control the deadline. The other team that could is the Texas Rangers. If they sell, which I think is possible, they could really make some noise if they wanted to. So we'll see. But the next few days are going to be very telling for Texas.
I'm on the edge of my seat. We know you can't root for one outcome over the other, but we are acknowledging that they have the potential to create significant deadline chaos.
Oh, they absolutely do have the potential to do it. And like if they do, like a guy like Nathan Eovaldi could really intrigue and help some of these contending teams. I think the Cardinals will make a lot of sense for Eovaldi, but it also sounds like the Cardinals are after or are on Zach Eflin. I think the Cardinals do have interest in Zach Eflin from what I've got. They've done their due diligence there, but they're one of a few teams that are interested there.
It's a great fit. So many teams are. It feels like the theme right now is so many teams are down bad. I mean, we have looking through every comment. Like we have Will Thomas asking, could the Braves be potential sellers or are they going all in? This is after like it just feels like we just had 3 weeks of people asking like Braves outfield targets, Lane Thomas, like Jesse Winker. What are we doing here? And now it's like, should we just sell? Everybody at this point, a lot of slumps throughout Major League Baseball. Everybody hit those dog days of summer feeling like sellers. What's your read on the Braves, though, completely, unsarcastically? What are you feeling?
I still think they buy. I mean, they're under 500 in their like the last 70-ish games, if I remember correctly. But I don't think they're going to sell. I also don't think they're going to go all in. I think what they do is they could end up adding some pieces on offense. I mean, obviously outfield makes a whole lot of sense. I think they are a team that would make plenty of sense for a guy like Zach Eflin. He is somebody that I know Anthopoulos likes. So maybe that ends up happening. But I mean, they're in a weird spot right now. There's so many injuries on that roster. They're just battered and bruised and broken. And I mean, there's a lot of different words you can use to describe the Braves right now, but they still have a bunch of talent. Anthopoulos is one of the most creative and best general managers or president of baseball operations in baseball. Brian Snitker is a great manager. They can do this. We've seen how they've finished in first place in the division, only to be taken out by the Phillies, who finished in second place in the division. Why can't the roles be reversed this year? Who knows? But I expect them to buy, and outfield and starting pitching should be among their top targets here.
In terms of me being wrong entirely, I'm going to go all in on Jesse Winker as a very impactful deadline addition for some team. I don't know if it's the Braves, but I just feel like you're going to see that guy in October this year.
If you would have told me preseason that you would be telling me that Jesse Winker would be an impact addition at the deadline, I would have told you were crazy. But we're at the point now where you're not wrong. I mean, he could absolutely be a useful guy. I would expect him to go. Like I think I think the Nats could end up making some noise here at the deadline. They obviously have Winker, they have Lane Thomas, they have Kyle Finnegan. They have an abundance of other pieces that I think could go. So they're a team to watch, and I think Winker makes a lot of sense here as a trade candidate.
Winker has never had a below 100 OPS plus in any season in his Major League Baseball career, except for last year when it was 58 in Milwaukee. That is gross.
Yeah, that is gross.
It's just very odd and gross. Anybody else we want to touch on here? I'm going through all the comments.
Here, let's see.
I found one. Somebody asked me, like, how do I feel about Brett Cox? And I genuinely was like, I don't know who that is. I Googled him. Do you mean F. Brett Cox, the professor of English literature at Norwich University? Is that who you're referring to? Because, I don't have any feelings about him at all. But, Robert, any other comments you want to touch on?
I'll see. Let's see. Cody Clegg, any major Pirates trade rumors? They're looking for bats. That's not that's not anything new there. Could the Angels trade Ben Joyce? He's controllable. He's young. He's a flamethrower. I think they'd have to be blown away. I would not get your hopes up there. Let's see.
Pat Brown pinging on the Tyone Red Sox rumors, which is interesting given the Cubsiness of the Red Sox current front office, but all that money, I don't know.
I think the money is going to end up being the biggest thing that holds a deal back there, but obviously Craig Breslow knows that farm system. He knows Tyone very well. And there's obvious familiarity between the two front offices. So maybe they could end up coming together on a different deal, but I think the finances on that one would kind of hold them back. So I would not Like it's basically just me being skeptical of the Red Sox's ownership at this point. They've shown me nothing until today that they're willing to spend. So shout out to them. Hopefully this is not just a blip in the radar for the Red Sox. It's a sign of things to come. But at this point, I'm skeptical. But today was a step in the right direction. So we love that for the Red Sox. I see Jacob Zanola saying, "Sorry, I'm an idiot." That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
What about we're gonna get James Paxton questions until that gets finalized and he lands somewhere. Do you have any inclination of interested parties? That saw a lot of Red Sox floating around there as well.
Yeah, the Red Sox talk is accurate. The Red Sox are interested, but there's a few teams that are in there. I would fully expect Paxton to get traded. That was a big surprise, but it was ultimately a move that made a lot of sense because they had to clear room for Glasnow and Clayton Kershaw, and he was also getting close to his game started bonus. He was about 2 starts away, so I think it was a savvy move by that front office, and his numbers were kind of deceiving. But I fully expect teams to inquire and ultimately trade for him. Mark Canha is a guy who is drawing interest, so that's a good shot by Sports Fan. Flaherty to the Dodgers. I don't know. Paxton hit all of his bonuses. Shout out to Fabian Ardaya, who corrected me on that. Fabian's watching the show. We love Fabian. Absolutely.
I got that wrong, and I edited a story too and edited it in the wrong way and then edited in Fabian's reporting. So shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Fabian. I got my notes incorrect there. Let's see. Yeah, I think we've got all the questions that needed answered.
What about the Giants and all their Boers fellas? We touched on Soler as a candidate last show a little bit, but 2 days later, any inclinations on the Giants?
They're still in a holding pattern, but if they sell, I don't expect it to be anything too crazy. But if I don't expect either way, no matter which way they go, I don't expect them to do anything too crazy. Let's see. There was another one. Where was it? Any buzz surrounding the Guardians? Yeah, and they're looking for starting pitching. Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting a lot of questions now. We love this. We love you guys for doing this. By the way, there's going to be questions that I don't get to here, but make sure to join the Discord. That's where I can end up answering all these questions. So make sure to join that. Could the Cubs buy? I would doubt it unless it's something that helps them out for next year. I think that's all I got.
We've got you guys really are the best. I mean, Mets, I'm seeing a few times before we sign off. Did I miss Mets in the whirlwind? Any updates there?
Nothing as of this moment, other than I can tell you that I'd be very surprised if Pete Alonso got traded. I expect him to stay. But yeah, I think the Mets add, but I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. I think they're going to add within reason. That's at least my view as of right now.
They're having one of those seasons where it's been fun in the status quo, so don't go wild. I mean, you guys are fun, so let's see what happens.
No, for sure. We also got a garbage man who's about to load up his truck right next to me. So if you guys hear anything in the background, that's what's going on right there.
No better time to sign off than it sounds like Aaron Boone's driving by, so we might as well get off the podcast. But thanks for joining us, everybody. Robert on the road today. We'll be back here, slightly different time on Friday. Very slightly different. We're just bumping it up to 2:30 Eastern. So turn on your notifications.
Okay, we got a super chat here from Harv. Pitchers of the Padres are looking into. I think a team that makes sense as far as a trade for them would be Tampa Bay. I know that those two teams have scouted each other, but from what I was told, the Padres are scouting everybody, which is common practice for AJ Preller. But I do know that there's certain players on the Rays that the Padres do like. So maybe keep that in the back of your mind.
And the Rays welcome Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen back at some point. So uniquely poised to hybrid sell by. The Rays are still going to be good down the stretch.
Yeah, I know I was not surprised at all for those jokes about the garbage man here. We got someone saying Jed Hoyer's at Roberts. I had Fabian Ardai just text me saying the garbage truck is coming for my takes. That's tough, but yeah, let's do this thing, baby. Let's go. We're having fun.
We're close. We got a show Friday. We got a show Monday. We got a show Tuesday night after the deadline. All of them big ones, and all of them, make sure to get your questions in. If you get them in ahead of time in the Discord, we'd love to have you in there. We'd love to see your questions, line a few up for the show, and also respond in the interim because it really does get nuts this time of year. Sorry I was unable to Google the right Brett Cox. Did you mean J. Brent Cox, the Longhorns closer and former 2005 Yankees draft pick? If so, my thoughts on him are has a bad signature, but I do have his Topps Chrome autograph rookie card. But if you meant somebody else, got no thoughts. The Norwich professor, again, I don't know anything. But we do know a lot about a lot of other stuff. I hope we answered most of your questions. Robert and I will be back here 2:30 Eastern on Friday, handling the rest of business. Robert Murray, it's the best time of year, except for, again, the winter meetings, which are also great. But this is a pretty great time of year. And it's been a wild ride already, despite the fact that we can't push these things across the finish line. Once we get one, let's break that down.
No, that we will, but it's just be patient. That's going to be the name of the game for the trade deadline here. I got to take a call, so I will see you guys on Friday. Adam, I love you, and I'll see you on Friday as well.
Love you, dude. See you in the Discord. See you on the show. Take care. We'll be right back here on Friday afternoon. Take care, everybody.